Every time I leave the house, I hope to meet her. Wherever I go, wherever I am, I want to believe I'm going to see her. Maybe that's what she wants. You don't have to be a romantic here. This girl can make us meet. But it's been almost a year and it still hasn't happened. Sweet Irina, have you really forgotten me? She always said she'd only get me into trouble. She said she'd poison my life. I didn't believe it, and I don't believe it now. Even with that girl around, incredible things happened. Scary things, scary things. I don't care about anything else as long as you come back. I'll tell you what I remember about her. It was a hot August. There were a lot of couples and friendly companies on Revolution Avenue, and I was alone between them. I left the house to fatten my steps in the mobile application, and I saw a girl. It was impossible not to notice her because she was eating Japanese noodles on the go. In one hand she was holding a box and in the other she had chopsticks. And there she was. It's not strange to see a person with a shawarma or a cheburek on the street, but to eat noodles. I saw her and thought, God, she's so funny. The girl passed by, and it seemed to me that she glanced at me and smiled in a sly way. I didn't even get a good look at her. Rounded hips and a short haircut were all I noticed. But she stuck in my head. I walked a little further, took a piece of paper from the ad girl who was dressed like a lady. I almost ran into a waiter at a Georgian restaurant and slowed down. There was a stack of napkins on a table under the awning. The wind picked them up one by one and dropped them on the sidewalk. I imagined picking up that packet and running back to catch up with that girl. Bon appetit. How about a napkin? That's so stupid. Only poor pickup artists do that. I'm normal. I don't meet people on the street. I meet on social networks. But I did it. I grabbed the tissues before the wind blew them all away and ran back. I looked around for her because she could have swerved at the crosswalk. I found her in the public garden. The girl was sitting on a bench with her head tilted back. Her eyes were closed, and she was smiling, enjoying the sunlight. She's really pretty. Napkin, I said, working up the courage. The girl opened her eyes, squinted, and made her palm a visor. Yeah, go ahead, she said, looking at me. The girl blotted her lips and then pulled the box of leftover noodles closer to her. She wanted me to sit next to her, the most unusual acquaintance of my life. My name is Sasha, I said. Sasha, I thought the girl repeated my name fondly. What's your name? I asked, not waiting for her to introduce herself. Irina, the girl answered. Irina. Her eyes were light bright. Skin so transparent that you can see the veins on her face. I can close my eyes and visualize her in the smallest detail. We took a long walk then. She was in a good mood. On Soviet Square, the girl ran into the dancing fountain to touch the jet in the center and got soaked. I covered my face with my hands. God, what she was doing. How open she was. She told me everything I asked her. And she didn't ask questions. It was like she didn't care how old I was, where I lived, what I did. I felt like I was allowed to be who I was. When Irina first came to my house, which was soon after, she wasn't self-conscious about anything. She put the kettle on the stove, went into the closet, took my t-shirt and old beach shorts, changed in the bathroom. I laughed looking at her. I was so surprised by her looseness, and the girl smiled and blinked funny. The first oddity in Irina's behavior I noticed when she stayed overnight at my place. I live in a studio apartment, and I have everything in one room. Bedroom, kitchen, and living room. And you can see the hallway right from the room. We were lying in bed with Irina. I was holding her, stroking her, and she was looking out into the hallway. Your door scares me, she said. Why does she scare you? I thought she was joking. It's weird that from the bed you can see the door to the entrance, said Irina. And there's a peephole open. I lifted my head from the pillow and looked. In the middle of the darkness hovered a blue glowing dot. It was just an open peephole. It was nothing. Turn around and don't look, I said and pulled the girl by the shoulder. No, She twitched. Can you go close the people? What was I supposed to do? I got up and went to close it. I wonder if I had known then what kind of things Irina could do when she was frightened. Would I have had the courage to walk a few steps in the dark, put the lid down, turn my back to the door, and go back to bed without looking back? I was scared for you. I thought it might eat you. Irina said, stroking my arm. Who's going to eat me? I asked and mentally laughed. You're such a child. The door, Irina said, and finally calmed down. It was just the beginning. We'd been dating for a couple of weeks. Irina signed us up for a children's workshop. She really wanted to make cookies and decorate them with icing. Together with the kids on the terrace of the cafe, we cut out bears, cats, and hearts with molds. And then we walked around the Central Park until dark. It was a nice day. If it hadn't been for this, some guy sitting on a bench gestured for a cigarette. I shook my head and said, I don't smoke. Why are you smiling? The man asked me rudely and got up from the bench. He was tall, broad, and unshaven. I made a stern face and slightly pulled Irina by the arm to get past this guy. I'm not a coward, but I'm not an idiot to get into a fight with someone with a fist the size of my head. You've been asked a question, the man said, blocking our way. I stood up so that Irina was behind me. Look, look, look. A knight. He stuck out his chest like a rooster, and he kept looking over my shoulder. I think he wanted to scare Irina more than me. I don't have a smoke. What do you want? I grumbled. Come on. The man breathed something acrid and sour on me. I went with him to the bench. I wanted to get him away from Irina. Why was he smiling at me? Life is fun. This guy was about 10 years older than me, but he was as cocky as a boy. Back off, I said, and immediately got a shove in the shoulder. The man glanced at Irina, as if to say, come on, yell. Stand up for me like a girl. This amuses me. But Irina froze and tensely watched what was happening. I'll kick your ass. I'll smack you right now. The big guy threw himself at me. I hit him in the chest with my fist. It was like hitting a concrete wall, like a paratrooper or something. He hit me in the jaw, and I fell to the asphalt. A styrofoam container with our homemade cookies crunched in my backpack. I quickly got to my feet. I wanted to grab Irina's hand and run, but then something happened to the man. He became numb, his eyes fixed on me. In the light of the lantern I could see him well, and it could not seem so. The man turned pale, and his lips turned blue. His eyes blurred like a blind man's. Then the skin on his cheeks sagged, and now his face was gray. His hair thinned. His nose began to blacken, his eyes turned into 2 dark circles, and there were nasty spots on his neck. Then the man turned brown and dry all at once, his forehead cracked and peeling. And then he disappeared. Not vanished into thin air, but vanished as if he never existed. There I saw him, and then he was gone. Gone. And I was in the wrong place. Irina and I were not standing, but walking along the sidewalk, quite far from that bench and the lantern. What was that? I stopped. What are you talking about? Irina looked at me very carefully. Well, that, I exclaimed and suddenly doubted. Did all this really happen, or did I just fantasize? I touched my jaw. It doesn't hurt. That's strange. What is it? Irina acted as if she didn't understand my surprise. But she was gloomy, as if something had spoiled her mood. At home, I took the cookie container out of my backpack, and it was whole. Another confirmation that the fight with the unknown man hadn't happened. However, I couldn't believe it. Irina told me about her unusual abilities a couple weeks later. After that nightmarish incident, there was no point in hiding anything. I guessed everything. It started with her tears. Irina said we should break up, but she couldn't explain why she had decided that. Of course, I disagreed. It was clear to me that I loved her. The girl cried and asked me not to follow her. I didn't want to find out on the street. I persuaded her to come to me. We walked like that until sunset. She walks a little way, sits on a bench and cries. I sit down to her, try to comfort her, tell her that we don't need to part. But she gets up and leaves again. I was very tired. I had a headache and my throat was dry from the constant persuasion to go home. Irina wandered into an empty courtyard, sat down on a bench in the playground. I sat down on the other edge. That's enough. You go home and I'll go to my place, tearfully said the girl. Her eyes were already swollen with tears. Irina, you told me yesterday that you love me, and now this. I thought that soon my tongue will fall off, so I'm tired of talking. That's it. Let's finish. She wouldn't give in. I'm going to leave now, and you don't follow me. Do you understand? No, I'll follow you, I said. No, you won't, said Irina almost angrily. I will. I was stubborn. And I will walk even all night, until you at least explain what's wrong. No, I will go, and you will not follow me. She almost shouted. You won't. The girl jumped up from the bench and ran. I felt as if I'd been hit with a club. And I felt dizzy. I saw Irina's light-colored dress flashed and disappeared behind the facade of the house. I wanted to get up. I wanted to, but it was impossible. It was as if I had long ago forgotten how to do it. I put my head down and saw that I had no legs. Yes, I had no legs. Just two stumps sticking out of my short shorts. And they had white, long overgrown scars on them. What the hell is that? And next to the bench was a stroller. My stroller. It used to replace my legs. A long time ago. A long time ago. Of course, I don't have legs. Why did I suddenly think I had legs? I lost them in the accident. What? That can't be true. I was 13. My dad took me on a trip. We had an accident. My father was killed. How did your father die? He couldn't be dead. I saw him the other day. I went to see him on my own 2 feet. Told him I had a girlfriend. That's how two versions of different memories fought in me. Which one was true? The truth was in front of my eyes. 2 stumps for legs and well-developed arms. I was just a kid. I woke up in the emergency room without one leg. The doctors promised to save the other one. For a year they performed complicated surgeries, but failed. They had to amputate the other one. And I got a wheelchair and pills to keep my damaged spine pain-free. I remembered it more clearly than I remembered walking on my own legs. Memories of high school graduation, university, long walks, the girl I ran after with a pack of tissues, seemed like yesterday's dream. Why am I sitting here alone in a strange courtyard? Tears sprang from my eyes. I leaned on my arms, lifted myself up, and fell face down on the hard ground. When I came to my senses, Irina was standing over me. She was sobbing and begging me to get up. I looked around like a madman, groping my body. My legs were in place. Thank God. Neither was the stroller next to the bench. I was safe and sound. Irina helped me stand up. I was still dizzy. I held the girl's hand, and we walked to my house without saying a word to each other. I have 2 questions for you, I said as we sat down across the table from each other. First, do you still want to break up with me? Irina shook her head, and tears came to her eyes again. Good, I exhaled. Now, please explain to me what it was. Don't ask me what I think you know what it was about. It's going to be very hard to explain, Irina warned me. Her voice became firmer. She seemed relieved that she no longer had to hide anything from me. Can you hallucinate or something? I asked. No, this is all real. Irina waved her hands in front of her face and asked for water. I poured and handed her a mug. She took a sip and continued. How do I say this? I can change reality. Do you realize that any of the events could have happened differently? There are so many ways things can or could have happened. Billions. I can choose those options. I can change them. But that's crazy. I couldn't help myself. That's fantastic. It's impossible. I'm doing it. Believe it or not. It's working, Irina said. So you can change the past, and it affects the present. Is that it? I try to understand. And that too. I don't know myself, Irina shrugged. There are many variations of what our world could have been like. What things might look like. What people might look like. What the laws of physics might be. And I can change all of that. Switch. I don't know. I don't control it. It happens on its own when I'm scared, or when I'm really angry, when I'm desperate. Sometimes I can undo what I've done. Sometimes I can't. If subconsciously I don't want to fix it, then there's nothing I can do. From light feelings also works. I can return someone close to me. I can heal a disease. I can make an unhappy person happy. But it happens less often than what happened to you today. I looked at my feet again. What happened to that man? I asked. You remember the one who attacked me in the park? He died. Irina gloomed again. How did he die? Why? I hoped she wouldn't say that. A long time ago. Irina lowered her eyes. More than 10 years ago. He was poisoned once, badly. A lucky chance saved him. A neighbor came by and saw him on the floor. The doctors managed to pump him out. So I got scared and made sure that this happy accident never happened. You remember this guy because you were with me. But to everyone else, he's long dead. How come? I had a hard time letting it go. Don't blame me for this. Irina took another sip from her mug. My remorse won't do any good. You can't fix it. I ripped that event from the root. And his wife, who didn't become his wife. She married someone else and had a child with him. One life is always replaced by another life. That's the law. How do you know all this? I asked. I just know, that's all. I see it when reality breaks down, Irina replied. Don't ask me anything else. Later she did explain why she wanted to break up. In order not to do anything, she needs inner peace, and when you get attached to a person, you feel a lot of anxiety and fears. Irina believed that in love a person loses himself. They want to see you in some way, you want to see him in some way. And in the end it's not clear what you are, she said. Since the day Irina moved in with me, my neighbor behind the wall seemed to be cured of his chronic bronchitis. I had gotten used to his perpetual coughing, and now he made almost no sign of his presence, just the occasional humming on the balcony. One day I asked Irina when she found out about her abilities, and she told me this story. I had a favorite book when I was a child. There was a picture in it, a starry sky and a good moon. He was alive. He had an eye and a nose and a mouth. I really liked that picture. And my mom told me that we could bake cookies in the shape of months. I was excited. We rolled out the dough and cut out circles with a glass, and then we cut them again, and we had months. I asked my mom, where are the eyes and nose? And she answered that for this you need special molds, and we only have a glass. I was a little disappointed. And then my mom took the finished cookies out of the oven, and I saw that all of our months had mouths, eyes, and noses, and they all looked like the months from the book. I don't remember my mom's reaction, whether she was surprised with me or not. But I thought she was magic. Later, Irina realized that Mom had nothing to do with it. Irina was afraid of her father, and her mom was afraid of him too. He didn't live with them, but sometimes he came over. He was always drunk, yelling at her mom, glaring angrily at her daughter. Mom never wanted to let him in, but he pounded on the door so furiously that sometimes she would give in. Irina remembered her mom crying and her hands shaking. One evening, her mother asked Irina to stay home alone for a short time. The girl was afraid, in case her father came. He won't. I'll be quick. Only buy butter, said the mother, and left. Irina was 5 years old. She was sitting in the living room, watching TV, and suddenly heard a knock on the door. At first it was almost inaudible, and then again, louder. The girl looked out into the hallway. There was no light on, and in front of her was a scary dark door. On the other side, there was another bang. Irina heard her father's fierce voice. He was shouting dirty curses, bad things about Mom. He pounded on the door so hard that it shook. Irina was petrified with fear. She thought the door was about to fly off its hinges, and her father would burst in and kill her. He was yelling, "I'll kill you. I'll kill you." The girl clutched her eyes shut. She wished her father would never come again. Never, never, never. Open, Vivi. Her father's loud voice faded away, as if he had been stuffed in the face with a pillow. And the final knock on the door came out somehow faintly. "Tuh." And it became quiet. Irina stood clenched for a minute, and then opened her eyes and saw the light from the light bulb in the entrance through the peephole. There was no one standing outside the door, and it was clear to Irina that her father would never come again. That's how she realized she could do these things. Maybe it's hereditary, Irina speculated. When I was a child, my mother told me that my grandfather was a hypnotist. Well, that's what she said, the hypnotist. I don't know what it was really like. One day some men came to his house to investigate. They told him to stop practicing quackery. And the grandfather says to them, "See the geese, take them and slaughter them." They did as he said, and then realized they'd cut their boots. "So your grandfather had that gift too?" I asked. "I don't know. It's a family legend," Irina replied. She never introduced me to my mom, though she promised me she would. I understand why Irina wanted to leave me several times. She was afraid of her power. Did she know how great it was? I've had strange and vivid dreams. I've dreamt that I'm sitting alone in my apartment with the curtains drawn. I'm afraid of something. There's a buzzing coming from the street, like a swarm of bees circling outside the window. And it just keeps getting stronger and stronger. Someone's knocking softly on the door. I know I shouldn't open it, but I can't help it. I get up and go to open it. There are two people standing outside the door. Not people. They look human, but they're not. Their heads are too big, their necks thin, their arms long almost to their knees. They have strange faces, small eyes, indistinguishable noses, mouths like holes. They're dressed in some old rags. These ridiculous creatures push me back against the wall and walk into my apartment. They walk jerky, wobbling, dropping their foreheads forward. It's hard for them to carry such large heads on thin necks. These two are rummaging through my shelves. They take out bread, tear the wrapping, drop the pieces on the floor, eating. They slurp loudly. I don't do anything but stare, and my head's in a tizzy. The longer I'm around them, the more my brain buzzes. One of the creatures pulled some canned goods from the shelf. He rummaged in the drawer and pulled out a can opener. Only it couldn't open it. The creature poked at the can with inept, soft hands. It tried for a long time, but it only made a small hole. It got desperate and started sucking the contents noisily. I found the strength to leave. I went out to the entrance, and there were big holes in the steps. Not the kind of holes that you'd see in a wreck. They're round, flat holes, like they'd been cut with some kind of laser. And through those holes, you can see that the whole stairwell is like that. And there's something gray at the bottom of the stairs. I look up, and it's those creatures. A whole bunch of creatures trying to climb over the holes and up the stairs. I'm standing there not knowing what to do next. And then Irina appears from somewhere. She grabs my hand and pulls me. It's hard for me to move, but she slaps my cheeks and pulls me. When I woke up, Irina was rubbing my shoulder. I had dreams like that a few times, but I couldn't always remember the events. Sometimes I wondered if they weren't dreams at all. Maybe something happened, and Irina changed the world beyond recognition, and then she managed to fix it. It's a heavy burden to have so much power and not know how to control it. And how did we live our lives? We were happy and quiet most of the time. We went to book fairs, cooked together, watched movies in the evenings. Our lives were made up of ordinary things. Miracles happened with few exceptions. But there were days when things went wrong. In anger, Irina would start saying that it was better for her to be alone and never see me again. She said she would have ended it a long time ago if she wasn't so weak. I couldn't stand those days. Then one day I woke up on a train. It was that feeling when you wake up in a new place and don't know where you are. It lasted longer than usual. It was dark in the compartment, the wheels were pounding, and all I remembered was that I'd had a dream. In that dream there was some girl eating noodles on the go, and she was living in my apartment. Then I started to remember that I went on the trip alone. The night before, I got on the train to Moscow, and I'm going here. Why alone? Well, who should I go with? I arrived early in the morning. I checked into a hotel. I saw our bed and Red Square. For the next 5 days, I did nothing but wander the streets and eat in inexpensive cafes. All this time I couldn't escape the feeling that something was wrong, something strange, and something was missing. Something. I didn't think about my dream on the train any more than I think about dreams in general. It was soon forgotten, and the image of the girl no longer seemed familiar and bright. When I returned home, I had a vague feeling of being waited for, and when I saw my empty apartment, I even felt sad. I spent the next 2 months concentrating on work. I didn't think about anything. I just lived and tried to make money. One evening, while taking a shower, I heard my cell phone beeping in my room. For some reason, I wanted to hurry up. I got out and read the message. I'm on the top floor, standing on the communal balcony. If you want, come up to me. Irina. Irina. She had been missing for 2 months. I remembered everything at once, and in a minute I thought I hadn't forgotten. Without drying my head, I took the elevator to the 24th floor. Irina was wearing a jacket and a hat with a pompon. I hadn't seen her in warm clothes before. Why did you do that? I was annoyed. I was offended to realize that this girl is able to solely make decisions, whether to be together or to break up. Why did you come? Irina asked me again. She looked at me, trying to understand whether I was happy to see her. No. Why did you leave? I didn't move closer, though I wanted to touch her, to know I wasn't dreaming. It's the same. I can't control myself when we're together, Irina said. Her eyes were wistful and doomed. Why are you here? My ears blew. I hugged myself with my arms and began to wriggle from foot to foot and think that I should not have gone out on the balcony in home clothes. Showed weakness. You know, Irina folded her hand with a pistol and put her fingers to her temple. Someday I'll find the strength to take you out of my head. I'll make sure I forget you forever, so I don't have to hurt you or myself anymore. I looked down at the city, at the yellow squares of windows, at the red lights on the roofs of the high-rises. Countless, but such dim lights amidst the darkness and cold. I thought how lonely I was in the midst of it all. I wanted to take Irina's promise that she would never leave me again. But instead I said, let's go home. And we did. Irina spent the whole winter with me. At some point I stopped thinking. She would want to leave again and relaxed. We bought a TV together so we could watch movies on the big screen instead of the laptop. Everything was fine. That's what I thought. And then this conversation happened again. And Irina confessed. You didn't love me. I made you do it. What are you talking about? How could you make me? I didn't believe her. When we first saw each other, I liked you and you didn't like me, said Irina. I didn't understand her. I mean, we only looked at each other for a second. How could I tell if I liked her or not? That's what I asked her. No, you didn't. It wasn't like that. It wasn't the first time we met. Irina hid her eyes, and her face turned pink. I was silent, realizing that it was possible. Irina can do anything. We met 3 years ago in a cafe where you worked part-time, she said. I did work as a waiter in a cafe while I was studying. I liked you. I started going there during your shifts, continued Irina. I ordered a mug of coffee and sat there watching you. And you didn't pay any attention to me. I was just a visitor to you, a weirdo. And then you got a girlfriend. She came to your cafe. You hugged her, kissed her. I listened to her and tried to remember. It was a small cafe where you rarely saw anyone. There were shifts, but there was no girl. There was no customer with Irina's face who always ordered coffee. Is it true? I couldn't help myself and did something bad. Irina avoided my gaze. She was ashamed. I erased that version of events. You never met that girl, and you never met her. It never happened. And then you paid attention to me. Because I wanted you to. It was like you saw me for the first time. You talked to me. Asked me for my number. We became a couple. 3 years ago. And I don't remember any of it because, I was dumbfounded. Because then I erased that too. The girl interrupted me. Erased the events where we met. I felt it was all wrong. Only I couldn't leave for good. I felt like meeting you on the street, and we met again. When I was eating noodles and you laughed at me. Do you remember? After that story, I felt like I wanted to be alone. Take a walk, think it over. So I left, leaving her at home. I took a long walk, thinking. I felt like a puppet again. I thought about a girl I'd never met. What was she like? What was our relationship like? Something easy and short-lived, or could something serious come out? I was angry. I felt like I was very disappointed in Irina. She's so spoiled by her power. What she wants to do, she does. And then I calmed down a little. I remembered how desperately she loved me, and I was ready to forgive anything for that. I came home in the evening. Irina was still at home. Maybe I didn't love you, I said. And maybe I wouldn't have paid attention to you if you hadn't wanted me to. But I do now. It's a personal feeling. It came with time. I love you and I want to love you. You didn't force it on me, did you? Irina shook her head, squeezed her eyes shut to keep from crying, hugged me, and nuzzled her nose into my neck. I wish I could end it there. Like in good movies where love conquers all. But in life, stories like this don't end with the credits playing romantic music, and we just postponed the breakup for a little while longer. I can't remember exactly how long we lived together, but it was summer. I came back after a hard day's work. Irina and I spent a normal, quiet evening, just like yesterday and the night before. We had dinner, listened to music, and went to bed. I was already dreaming, and suddenly Irina touched my arm. The peephole is open, she said. What? I woke up. The peephole is open, repeated the girl. Irina, I'm so tired, and I don't want to get up at all. I muttered. Well, I can't sleep while the peephole is open, she said pathetically. So close it yourself. I felt like I had no strength at all. On your own. Irina's voice trembled. You know I'm afraid. Are you in any danger? I didn't give up. No, I'm not threatened. I felt like she was almost ready to do it. Now, get up and close the peephole, I pressed. You'll finally realize that it's not dangerous. Yes, Irina still wasn't sure. The main thing is to decide. I closed my eyes and turned to the window. Can you make up your mind? I guess I can. Irina got out of bed and walked away, and I never saw her again. I woke up in the middle of the night, and she wasn't there. And the peephole was closed. Did she do it? Wiped me out of her head. Nothing happened to her, did it? Did she just go away and erase me from her mind? Was she upset that I couldn't do something so small for her? Was that the final straw? My house was empty of Irina's things and anything that could remind me of her presence. There wasn't even one of my t-shirts that she liked to wear at home. A yellow t-shirt. It's oversized. I could drown in it. What if she took it away to remember me one day? Will she want to know how she got that shirt and remember me? Will she? I look for Irina every day. I walk the streets. I look at the faces of passers-by. If only I knew what neighborhood her house was in. Or maybe I did once, but Irina covered her tracks. Maybe she doesn't look the way I remember her. I don't know what to believe anymore. Sweet Irina, come back. I don't want to spend my life without you.